Hi everyone, I'm Chris O'Neill from Sew the Distance, and today we are going to be making the Ohio Star block. And this is just such a cool block. It's inspired by this quilt that you see here. This was an old quilt that I got at an auction. I also have a lessons from an old quilt video going into more detail about this one if you want to check it out. And I just was inspired by it to make a block and to show how it's made. So today we're going to be making this one. But you can do all kinds of things, and like I often do, I have a few different samples made up so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So this one, you can see that I made the middle of different fabric. It gives you such a nice look, and this is for 4th of July or a patriotic quilt. I did the same thing with this one, which is a fall-inspired block. Now I got a little more creative with the next one, which is Christmas, and you can see how I kept the corners, middles, and corners the same and change these out in here. And then finally we have this one, which is one of my favorites, this Halloween one, where I changed a lot of this and made it look really cool with the different colors. I also have even a small one, so you can change the sizes of this. And I'll get into all of this and how to do that as we dig deeper into this project. I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. However, I do have some written instructions on my website if you're interested, for a minimal fee, just because it takes a lot of time to write up patterns. I also have a blog on this, which is free, so you can check that out too and get some ideas on how to make this in different ways you can change it. So let's get started by looking at the actual block and the supplies you're going to need to make it. So here's the quilt block. It's a 9-patch, so it's made up of 9 patches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you can see these are hourglass blocks. This is your center that goes with your legs of your star, and then you have this background. So it's a very simple 2-color block. Like I said before, you can change that up, but for this tutorial for right now, I'm going to show you the 2 colors. At the end, I'm going to show you a variation too on it. Once you see the basic block, you'll get a good idea on how to modify it. And so I do suggest starting with the basic block if you've never made this one before. So I'm just going to show you, I have some other fabrics cut out just to give you an idea of how this is made. So we have, actually we'll move this out of the way. We have the 4 hourglass blocks, and we're going to be making these 2 at a time. We have the center block, and then we have the corners, which is the same fabric as the background for this block. Now you can modify this by changing things around, like even going like this, or play with colors, or do all kinds of things with it. It's a really great versatile block. You can even put this in the middle to give it a different look. It's a lot of fun to play with. So let's talk about the supplies that you'll need. You're going to need 2 5.5-inch squares of your theme fabric and 1 4.5-inch square. You're also going to need 4 4.5 squares of your background fabric and 2 5.5-inch squares of your background fabric. And that's it. That's all you need. You don't need a ton of fabric to make this block. It's a really wonderful scrap buster because of that. You also need a few other things to make this. You'll need a ruler that's at least 7.5 inches long. You also need a square ruler. It just makes it a little easier when you're trimming it up. You could probably get away with a wider ruler and long and skinny, but a square ruler is going to be your best friend for this. If you want to, you could use a block lock. That's what I like to use, and there's some other tools that you can use. You will also need a marking pencil, rulers, general quilting supplies, and we'll get into all of that as we start making this. Okay, we're going to start by making the hourglass blocks. So you're going to take your 2 5.5-inch squares of the light or background and 2 of your prints. We're going to put these right sides together. Just like that. Make sure they're lined up. You're going to take your ruler and line it up so the corners, the points, are against the line. And this is the way I like to do it. There are other ways of doing it too, but this is just my favorite way. And then I'll take a marking pencil or pen. You're not going to see this, so you can use whatever, and I'll draw a line. I'm going to make it nice and dark just because I want it to show up on camera. And then I'm going to move my ruler over 1/4 inch and mark another line. And then you can turn this and mark another line. You're measuring over 1/4 inch on each side of this line and marking. Now, like I said, there's tapes and stuff like that that you can use on your machine to measure this out. I personally love doing it this way because I know for sure exactly where I need to sew. Do the same with this one. Mark that center line. And mark a 1/4 inch on each side. And just like that. And I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew right on this line, this line, this line, and this line. I'll meet you back here. Did any of you figure out my mistake? I had it not right sides together, so I did catch it right before I sewed it, so that's good. So these definitely you want right sides together before you sew. And then the next thing we're gonna do is press our seams right as it is, and it's called setting your seams. This is so important because it makes everything just lay nice and flat. You can see how it's kind of bubbly, and it makes all the difference. So I'm just gonna hit it with the iron right on top as is, just like that. Okay, so then our next step is to cut these apart. We're gonna cut on the middle drawn line. So I'm just gonna lay my ruler here, grab a rotary cutter, and cut. And I'm gonna do the same with this. And that's gonna give us 4 half square triangles. So when we open these up, you'll see we have half square triangles. I'm going to go ahead and press these to the darker fabric. So if you're using a dark background, you'd press to that side if it's darker than the theme fabric you're using. The important part is to be consistent. Because the floral is my darker, I'm going to press to that. I'm just going to open this up carefully, finger press it, and then go in with the iron and press it really well. And I'm going to do this on all 4 of these. All right, so now you have 4 half square triangles. Now normally, if you're making half square triangles this way, you would trim these up. We aren't trimming them up yet because we still have another step to make our hourglass blocks. Okay, so now to make the hourglass blocks, it's so easy, you're just gonna be amazed. All right, we're gonna take one of our half square triangles and we're going to lay that down on a flat surface, and then we're gonna take another one, but we're gonna make sure that we put them opposite each other. So I have the print against the background and the background against the print. Now, because of the way we pressed them, these should lock into place, meaning these 2 seams here should nest together really well, and they do. Make sure they are nice and tight and butted up against each other because that's your center point. It's going to make that hourglass, and it'll look really nice if it is all together. If it's not a big deal. Like we saw in the sample quilt, blocks can be wonky and still be beautiful. So you can not stress out so much about it, but if you do want it to be really close to perfect, then just make sure it's nice and tight up against the other side, so the 2 sides are kind of nested together. Now we're going to take our ruler again and draw a center seam again, not a seam. We're going to draw a center line. My pen's coming apart. There we go. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm just going to mark this. Then I'm going to move it over a 1/4 inch, mark again. Do another 1/4 inch on this side, mark it. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with this set. Once I've sewed both of these, I will meet you back here and you'll see the magic of this block. Okay, these are sewn. So what do you think our next step is? We're going to set those seams. It's such a minor thing and it's so important. At least I think so. Now, if you're not sure if it all worked out, you can peek inside and see if those points are on, and mine are. So you might want to do that before you cut them apart, just in case. All right, now we're going to cut on that center drawn line, just like before. Just line it up. Cut, line it up, and cut. Now you have 4 of your blocks, your hourglass blocks. Want to see? This is so exciting. All right, so we're just gonna open one up and press it, just like that. Do that for all of these. All right, here they are. Look at how cute they are. So now we have to trim them up. but I just want you to admire how adorable these little guys are. So the next step is to trim these to 4.5 inches. They are slightly oversized, so you definitely want to trim them down. I always like to make things oversized and then trim things down. To me, it just makes things much easier. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Now there are a lot of different tools to do this. So Be It Quilts has one of these, which you put down and you can just line up your lines right on the top. I personally love the block lock rulers, but I know they're spendy. They're worth it in my opinion, but they are expensive. And these are wonderful. But if you don't have one of these, you can still use a ruler. So I'm going to show you the different ways of squaring these up, 3 different methods. You can pick which one you like, or even come up with your own if you want to. But the important thing is that they come out to 4.5 inch squares. So we'll start with, So Be It Quilts. This isn't the right size. Let me get the right size. I had the wrong size. All right, so this is a 4.5 inch trim lock. And you can just line up the lines on this and cut around it. And you can see it's only slightly bigger. I'm just going to turn this around. I think you can turn the whole thing, but we'll just turn it this way. And that gives you your 4.5 inch square. Get my scissors because I didn't quite get it with my rotary cutter. Might need to change that blade. Okay, so that's one way. Another way is with the block lock. And the block lock has a ridge on it that goes right up against it. Now, when you're using the block lock, you do need to make sure you're in the center. Your center point right here is in the center of the block. So it's right there on that line. And that just, like I said, locks into place. It just holds it there. I'll pull away the pieces, and you can see that I missed right here. There we go. And then if you don't have a block lock or you don't have the trim lock, you just have a ruler, which is fine. The way you do this, actually we're going to move that out of the way. You can put a piece of tape on the, is that a 45-degree angle? You know me, I don't know angles. I think it's 45, I'm not sure. Anyway, you can put a piece of tape right up against it, and this is just a piece of masking tape, and it kind of creates a ledge. So we want 4.5. Now this gets a little trickier. Let me move some of this out because we need half of 4.5 to be at our center point. So that is 2 1/4. So I want to make sure that's on like that. Everything's lined up, and I'm going to cut 2 sides. So I'm going to cut this side and this side. Okay, now I'm going to lift this up, turn this. This is the way I square up blocks too. And we're going to go, let me see, this will work. This will work because of the 4.5 mark. I just got confused. Sometimes I get confused. All right, so there's the 4.5 inch, 4.5. This should line up that center, which it does. So I'm lining up this side, and then I'm going to cut the other 2 sides to get my 4.5 inch hourglass. Just like that. And then of course I have one more. I'm just going to use the block lock, which is my favorite, to do that one. Okay, I'm going to take a minute and clean up and meet you back here. Okay, so we now have all the pieces that we need to build this block. Our center piece is the 4.5 inch square of our theme fabric. And then we lay it out here like this. Oh, look how pretty. And now we're just going to sew it together in rows. We're going to sew this row, and this row. Now press towards the unpieced block. So you're going to press this one out, this one in, and this one out, and that's going to allow these to nest together. You're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and start stitching. Right sides together. I'm just going to do this so I remember, go right to my machine with this board and sew them together. Okay, my row's done. So we're just going to lay these out Made sure that they were pressed. This one needs to be pressed a little bit more. Let me hit that with the iron. All right, so these are all done, the rows, and they should nest because I press these out, these in, these out. All you're going to do is put it right sides together, and those should lock into place. Now, if you want to use pins, you can use pins. I love using pins, as you know, which I'm going to grab some. And I know I'm weird. I pin this way. So you can see that one's a little off. Not a big deal. We're not going to stress. I'm going to sew this, and then I'm going to do the same thing down here and sew that. And then we will have a finished block. All right, the block is done. Isn't it cute? Oh, I love how it turned out. Now, it's not perfect. There's a few points that are a little off. Not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. I am going to show you a variation of this. So say I wanted these to be a different color. I'm going to show you how to do that because it's really, really easy. All right, so you do need different supplies though, but that's not a big deal. So I have one prepared. I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to make it. Isn't this cute? So it's made the exact same way, you just put the colors together differently. So for this alternate block, you'll need 3 fabrics. You'll need your background fabric, you'll need your theme fabric, and then you'll need your contrasting or accent fabric. So for the background, you'll need 4 4.5-inch squares, these guys. You'll need only one of the 5.5-inch squares of the background. From your theme fabric, your floral, whatever you're going to use, you'll need 1 4.5-inch square, and then you'll need 2 5.5-inch squares. And then from your accent fabric, you'll need 1 5.5-inch square. So you're going to do the exact same thing we did before, same process of making the half square triangles, but you're going to construct them a little bit differently. You're going to take your theme fabric, your 5.5-inch square of theme fabric or whatever it may be, and then you're going to take your accent fabric and you're putting these together, right sides together, drawing your lines and sewing 1/4 inch on each side of the line. You're also going to do the same for one of your theme fabrics and one of your backgrounds. Same exact thing. You're going to draw your line, sew 1/4 inch on each side of that line, and get your half square triangles, which I've already done. So you'll get 2 that look like this and 2 that look like this. And to make this so it all lines up, you're going to do the exact same thing, except for you're going to match 2 opposites up. So you're going to take one of your accent and theme fabrics and put it opposite of your background and theme fabric. So when we sew these, that's going to be your hourglass that looks like this after you trim it down. And you'll have enough to make the block. All kinds of variations. You can turn this, you can do all kinds of fun things, change out different squares, the corners, whatever it may be, and it's a lot of fun to make. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions about this block. I have it on my blog, and you can check it out there, and you can ask away, you can email me, whatever you need. I am here to help you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew. I'll see you real soon. Bye.